competitive world, average won't cut it. The Success Launch Point shows you how to stand out, deliver massive value, and rise above the crowd. With on-demand courses, expert coaching, and a community focused on growth, you'll accelerate your career and your paycheck. It's time to level up. Check out modernobserver.com/launchpoint.
Hamas cells active in Europe, a possible Ukrainian peace plan, a blockbuster jobs report, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. Coordinated counterterrorism raids across Europe have uncovered what Israeli authorities describe as a significant Hamas network preparing attacks against Israeli and Jewish civilians. The joint effort involved the Mossad and multiple European intelligence and law enforcement agencies working across several countries. According to the statement released by Israel's Prime Minister's office on behalf of the Mossad for Intelligence and Special Operations, the dismantled network was part of a broader effort by Hamas leadership to establish terror infrastructure across the continent. Israeli officials referred to the network as the Hamas Octopus, describing operational cells, weapons hideouts, and logistical channels intended to activate attacks on command. A senior Israeli intelligence official familiar with the details told Fox News Digital, "There are active cells across Europe right now, already on their way to targets, and the public, along with law enforcement bodies in these countries, must be significantly more alert as this activity continues." The United States has developed a sweeping 28-point framework aimed at ending the nearly 4-year-old war between Russia and Ukraine, which reportedly includes provisions for territorial freezes, troop caps, and economic reintegration for Moscow. The plan, developed in part through consultations led by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff with both Russian and Ukrainian officials, is the most detailed vision yet for ending the conflict, though it is viewed by some Ukrainian officials as a potential capitulation. Senior U.S. officials told reporters that they received positive feedback on the majority of the plan from Ukraine's Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council. Ukrainian President Zelensky is expected to discuss the plan with President Trump in the coming days, a meeting that will determine how Ukraine chooses to proceed with the sensitive proposals. The Department of Justice sued Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday over a California measure that gives illegal immigrants access to in-state tuition benefits, making the third lawsuit in 1 week that the department has brought against the high-profile Democratic governor. The lawsuit, brought in the Eastern District of California, alleged that California's education code caused out-of-state U.S. citizens to pay higher tuition rates at California schools than people living in the country illegally. The attorneys called it unequal treatment that was squarely at odds with federal law, which states that people unlawfully living in the United States cannot be given tuition benefits based on their residence that U.S. citizens are not also entitled to. California is facing a nearly $18 billion budget deficit for the upcoming fiscal year, primarily due to higher-than-expected spending despite some revenue growth. The shortfall could increase to $35 billion by the fiscal year 2027-2028. After a delay of a month and a half due to the Schumer shutdown, the U.S. Labor Department has released the September jobs report, which exceeded expectations, adding 119,000 jobs to the U.S. economy, in the strongest gain since April. The private sector added 97,000 jobs, while the government added 22,000 jobs in September, after it had lost that same amount in August. Unemployment rose to a 4-year high of 4.4%, which reflects both the positive news of more Americans participating in the workforce and the negative news of recent corporate layoffs. Average hourly wages, which tend to indicate the direction of consumer spending, notched their smallest increase since June. The Workers' United Union said it is expanding the workers' strike against Starbucks to more than 24 new cities and stores in what they have threatened to make the largest, longest strike in Starbucks history. The union said Thursday it will now be striking at 95 stores in 65 cities, with some 2,000 baristas now engaged in the action. On Wednesday, baristas and allies also picketed and held a rally outside of the company's distribution center in York, Pennsylvania. Starbucks said there were no disruptions to its operations in York. Workers United said the majority of stores where strikes were held had to close down on the first day of the strike due to staffing issues, and the lack of workers impacted some 50 locations in the days to follow. Starbucks said stores that had issues were often able to reopen quickly, and that less than 1% of the locations are experiencing disruption from the strike. The strike has so far not appeared to dent foot traffic or sales. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth Daily News Brief, as well as our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, with news analysis and commentary, and the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.